social network that we have. So I don't know if everybody's familiar with Pinterest, but it's essentially a pin board which you can stick or pin images that you sort of like or deem relevant to your Pinterest board. So it's again very, very visual in its approach, and it's very, very quick, because as soon as you see an image on the website, you can pin it and immediately it goes onto your page. So you don't even really need to think about updates. It's just as you're browsing on your daily trawl through Google or your daily research, you can very quickly just pin an image and up it goes into your pin board. So it can be quite a nice additional channel. It's a bit more engaging because it's visual, and because it's the fastest growing social network, you're going to be speaking to new audiences and getting their attention through the media that you're sort of pinning and drawing yourself or aligning yourself to. Does anybody have a Pinterest page? So check it out. It's very, very, as I say, visual. It's very, very new, but it's something that might add an extra dimension to your communications as you move forward. Crowdsourcing is another new initiative. So there are some fantastic examples of this, and from a personal perspective, we do crowdsourcing every day. You might post on your Facebook or Twitter, can anybody recommend a restaurant in London? Can anybody recommend a restaurant in Amsterdam? And people that you're friends with will provide solutions to your problems. So they might recommend a couple of different restaurants for you to try out, for example. But take that example into sort of an organisation's perspective, and you can achieve some fantastic things through the power of having a large community. Coca-Cola in Asia Pacific completely bypassed their advertising agency by going out to their Facebook community and asking people to submit their idea of what the new poster, the new lead campaign would be in Asia Pacific. And through all of the images, the independent photographers that sent in their images and recommendations, they had a brand new advertising concept which was free of charge. All they did was ask a question on Facebook about what their new campaign should look like in Asia Pacific. And you get all of these submissions, you get all of that engagement, all of that conversation, the PR articles it generates through asking one question, and you've got a brand new advertising concept which might have cost you $1 million to produce through an agency. So that gives us a powerful example of how we can solve problems and actually inspire our community to feed back to us and overcome our problems that we have every day. Sanofi actually did this with their diabetes challenge, and they basically gave a $100,000 reward for the most inspiring ideas within diabetes. And there was a few comments from independent clinicians to say that the amount of information and the amount of ideas that were generated would take 6 to 10 years to generate normally, but because of the power of the community, they got all of those ideas within 6 months. So it just shows the power. It's quite inspiring thought about how much we can get from the communities that we have. World Hepatitis Day, to bring it back to relevance, in Australia they are crowdsourcing what the names of the monkeys, the 3 monkeys should be. So that's just quite a nice, quite obvious way of having something a bit fun and posing a challenge or a problem, or creating a reward mechanism for people to get involved with the campaign. So something as simple as name the 3 monkeys is getting traction and creating conversation online. The other key component about social is that it is by far and away the most trusted source of a medium. So you look at things like online banner advertisements, which are actually trusted by only 33% of people, TV 62%, editorial content in a newspaper 69%, whereas opinions posted online and recommendations from people I know come out as time and again the most trusted sources of information that you can receive. So that just goes to show that if we're trying to create advocacy and we're trying to influence people, social can be a really, really easy win in terms of having that trust and actually having things that are going to inform those opinions. Just some considerations, so content from social media platforms should be regularly updated, frequently updated, so that you maintain momentum. The obvious thing is that you go in with a brand new medium like a social channel and you update it every day, but then you sort of tail off and then you update it maybe once a week, and then it's once a month, and the whole thing becomes it fails and sort of resigns to redundancy. That's the sort of typical pattern that a lot of people follow, but to maintain that engagement every day, the optimum thing is to tweet at least once a day, and there's been some research to show that you know, the optimum time to tweet is around 6 o'clock in the evening because people are coming back from home and they're checking their Twitter. So most of us will probably tweet it, you know, in the morning because we just want to get rid of it and do an update for the sake of it. But actually, there's some really nice research to show that there are key times where you should tweet if you're going to tweet at all.
I can also add to this that there already exist services that you can access for free, again, that can show you what are the optimal times to tweet. There are websites on which you can go and you can input some information. It will calculate when you can tweet, when you can use the Facebook. There are websites that can prepare where you can upload all of your content, and you can say, push this on Facebook at 6 o'clock, push this on Twitter at 8 o'clock, push this somewhere else at 9 o'clock, and then you get all of your work done in 1 hour or half an hour. And then all of your content for the day, for the couple of days or for the week is done. There are also websites which you can, online services which you can program in a way that's really, really, really easy and free. That you can program in a way that, for example, if someone tweets something, it automatically picks up the tweet and sends it to Facebook or sends it to your email, or vice versa. You get an email from someone and it sends it to Facebook. So just make sure you don't connect your private emails to your Twitter, because that's going to be embarrassing, as we've seen in the US. There are also services that you can use to monitor your Facebook and to monitor your Twitter, to filter, for example, your Twitter. This is something I did a week ago when I input our Twitter, the ELPA Twitter. I put it in the filter, and the filter works in really, really easy several steps that you can filter all of the people who are not following you, people who are not retweeting you, people whose accounts are dead. So basically you have numbers, but they're not doing anything for you. So you can always hang on to these people and just show the numbers to anyone interested, and just say that, well, here, these are our successes, but actually from 1,600 followers, you only have 100 people who are actually active, and the other 1,500 got hit by lightning and they're not in the picture anymore. So you can always filter, you can always devise the content better, and you can always reach your peers in the best way. If anyone is interested in any of these tools, or would like, or is thinking of something that would be useful to you and to your organization and to your communication channels, please do drop us a line and tell us, I'm thinking of something that I can do. Can I really do this? You don't know how to find it in Google? I don't know. Send me an email, SMS, hopefully now at 2 o'clock in the morning. I will try to help you as best I can. Is that okay?
Perfect. And just on the sort of idea of free tools, I just wanted to give you an example of something called TweetDeck. This is completely free, and it just means you can capture so much information about what's happening on Twitter in one place on your desktop. So you can set up the columns is exactly as you need them, but essentially you could look at sort of the new followers that you have that are coming in. You could set up specific hashtags to monitor. So for example, on our TweetDeck we've got see here, speak note as a hashtag, so that we can see every single person that tweets to that hashtag and they populate one of the columns. You could have Hepatitis to see what generally the conversation is around the Hepatitis hashtag. You can set up a column of all the people that are mentioning you. So you can get a very, whereas the sort of basic Twitter platform is quite basic in terms that you can only see what you've tweeted and what your followers are sort of tweeting at any one moment. You can create a really bespoke monitoring tool so that you can see what specific conversations are taking place, and therefore how you can retweet content very quickly, how you can get involved with those conversations. So that's just a recommendation that if Twitter's a priority for you, if you think it might be more of a priority off the back of today, then actually something like TweetDeck can be a really simple way. If you've got a social media manager, if you yourselves are responsible for social media, to keep on top of it, and actually to get it much more engaging and easy to use. So that's just a recommendation. We were going to do some tweeting, but I think we're going to do that later in the day. And that concludes the social media chapter. So I don't know if there's any questions or further queries from anyone.
Coming?
I'm trying to use my voice. I'm sure about what I'm going to ask. There can be 3, 4, 5 days generally speaking, Facebook communication
Yep.
helps more if you want to achieve this. I mean, the assets of Facebook versus Twitter, if you can give just like a few ideas.
Yeah, so there's quite a nice sort of spectrum of how social and how corporate different social media platforms are. So LinkedIn, very, very corporate. You don't really want to put fun stuff on LinkedIn. It's all about corporate. It's all about engaging professionals in an educational way, in an inspiring way, in a thought leadership way. And you kind of go through. So then Facebook is probably one of the more social, but it's not quite as Twitter before Facebook. So that Twitter is again quite business-led. It can be quite corporate, but equally it can be quite fun and engaging. Whereas Facebook, if you go corporate on Facebook, people are just not going to be. That's not why people go on Facebook. You want it to be entirely fun, entirely engaging, very visual. So that's I don't know if that's.
So Twitter would be more corporate-ish
compared to Facebook, but not as much as LinkedIn. So you do want inspiring content, but people are still going to follow you and listen to you if you've got more of a kind of corporate organisational message, or there's a financial message or whatever. But Facebook is entirely, that's not why people are going on Facebook. So you do not want to be, having any kind of content that really speaks to those points.
I think the biggest difference that you have to keep in mind when differentiating between Twitter and Facebook is that Twitter is limited to 140 characters. So this is why people try to make their say as short and as firm as possible. So if you're, for example, here at ESOL and you saw something interesting and you say something because you don't have the letters at ESOL right now, 2013, this is happening. And this goes out as a tidal wave because it reaches your followers, they retweet, but there's no real interaction as you would have on Facebook. There are no comments and there are no trolls. There are just people who are retweeting. And people just hear about this. And you don't really know, for example, I tweeted this and 1,000 people heard about it. I don't know if these 1,000 people agree with me exactly. Did they come here to check it out? I don't know exactly what happened. You can always try and see with the statistics, and you can, if you follow them, you can sort of go into their own comments, but this will take you quite a while. And Facebook gives you the opportunity to connect with your followers a little bit more personally, and they can give you a comment right away. And Facebook is always innovating, and right now they did this change when if you post something, some idea, for example, and people start commenting, the comments with the most likes, I think, get separated from the other ones. And they get into like a cluster, because before, if you get one idea and 1,000 comments, you would have to press a button and open all the 1,000 comments to find one which is a good comment. And right now, these all pop out. Question?
I know you have preference for Facebook, but then I think that Twitter really gives you the chance to make your point clear.
There you go.
I know your preference for Facebook.
I don't have a preference for Facebook.
Okay, my point is that I think it's important to integrate both channels, because yes, Facebook gives you the opportunity to discuss more with people, but also people get lost with long comments. They start talking about hepatitis and they end up talking about where we're going to have coffee. So I think Twitter also gives you the opportunity to make a clear statement and then just have followers who are going to follow it for the sake of it.
This is actually why you can also connect your Facebook to your Twitter. And you can have the things that you post on Facebook, they can be posted directly to Twitter. So you can get attention from both mediums. And this is why we talked about multi-channeling. I'm not only about Facebook. I got on Facebook because I had to go on Facebook. I didn't go by my own will. But this is my general perception. Twitter is great for reaching out to many people at once in a second. So if something really important happens, it's better to use Twitter, not Facebook. And if you want to put something that is going to last a little bit longer, like a photo or a video or anything like this, it would be best to have it also on Facebook, but not only on Twitter, because it might get lost on Twitter. You have a comment? I have one here.
In Belgium, the most people, they have hepatitis. They are between the 50 and the 70. I asked the Twitter now and Facebook maybe, but we don't have young people with hepatitis, drug users, but they work, don't work with computer.
I like to say that I prefer more Facebook because depends which country what more using. One of the biggest problems. My country using more of 90% of the people Facebook and 20% Twitter, and more easier for some countries to use Facebook. Maybe Twitter has better performance for using, but depends what you like. What is your proposal?
My name is Dima. I'm from Ukraine. We have the same problem. We have access to the internet of 20% of people in Kyiv, it's the capital of Ukraine, and 12 or 14% in the other regions. We use all these instruments, what you said, for communication with journalists. The TV is a most channel for communication with people in our country, and we use this instrument to connection with journalists.
And that's a good example because in the UK, almost all national journalists are on Twitter, so to engage with them not only via a sort of traditional press release mechanic, but also to engage their interest or pique their interest via Twitter is key for us. But to the other gentleman's point, different countries have different preferences themselves. So entirely, this is just a principle. It's a best fit presentation, but totally in terms of the preference for different channels will completely vary. So if in France, I believe Twitter is more prominent than Facebook, whereas it's the opposite in your region. So that will completely bias your channel planning in terms of the types of content you want to push out via the most prominent channels.
Hi, in Portugal is Facebook too, and I have the page for the association, and the people see the post, but don't comment. I post in the page of SOS and my page. And my page, I have 4,000 friends. Yeah. And 90% is patients. And they like, comment, but in my page, not the page of SOS, because we have many discrimination. We are the people very conservative. Yes, conservative. We don't tell no, they see, but they not comment, not like, not nothing. In my page, maybe, but in the association, no, yeah. Forget.
And that's I guess we've got a similar position in the UK, and I think that's probably representative globally, so people don't really want to talk about hepatitis particularly, same with the media. So that's why we did a monkey campaign, because monkeys are funny, everybody recognises these gestures, and it's not specifically about hepatitis, it's kind of everybody can get involved with it, but by the way, there's all this messaging around hepatitis as well. So that's exactly why we wanted to do something which at the forefront was compelling and fun to some degree, to capture, widen the net in terms of the people that we could actually speak to. So it might be that you might want to change the type of approach and see, do a bit of testing. If you do something like quite visual, or if you talk about our campaign, then does that get suddenly a lot more commentary and a lot more involvement, rather than the more tried and trusted news or whatever it is specifically about hepatitis. So you can kind of chip and change a little bit to see which approaches work the best. But certainly that's what led us to have something a bit different in terms of our approach.
No, I must say,
it's a storm in here. And it's not only that it's cold, you know, my tinnitus gets worse, the eyes get worse. It's terrible. I'm sitting, my hair is moving. You know, is there nothing we can do, you know?
It is really cold. It is really cold.
Yeah, the curtains are moving. It's terrible. It's just terrible.
I'm really sorry about this, but it's the same issue like last night. It's central heating.
But why don't they put the whole building down? Nobody wants this.
I don't know. Maybe we can. You know what? You can tweet about this to Easel and ask them. I'm at Easel freezing. It's 20 degrees outside and I'm freezing inside. Actually, if you do this, we can make this small.
And we are sitting here for 6 hours, you know. If it was a quarter of an hour, I wouldn't say anything.
We can make this small exercise. Tweet this, we'll all retweet this, and if they turn down the heat, there you go. Policy action in action. So just to wrap up, no one is forcing anyone to use just Facebook, just Twitter, just something else. You are the ones who are working in your regions, in your fields, and you know your peers, you know the people, you know the patients. It was a great comment that you mentioned that patients are actually seniors and they don't always have access to internet, and some people don't even know what internet is. Maybe it's something to eat or I don't know what. But again, you need to know the people that you work with, and you need to invest and put efforts into finding the best way to communicate with them. In the West, it is a little bit more easier to connect with people through Twitter, but for example in Bulgaria as well, Twitter is widely used, but it's not as popular as, for example, in France, because not everyone in Bulgaria still has smartphone devices, for example. And this is the same thing which is happening in Eastern Europe, and I'm sure Ukraine, Lithuania, you guys can confirm this. Not everyone has access to mobile devices and computers, so not everyone can tweet on their way to work. Most people can Facebook or they can access a website, but you know your people and you should build your content.
Just one top sort of hint and trick, just to sort of leave you with, for those of you with Facebook pages. If you've got a Facebook post that you particularly want people to see, so if you've got 500 followers, you would quite like all 500 of them to see it. What's tended to happen previously is that you post something and then it drops down through people's timeline over the course of the day. So later on that somebody logs on, the less likely they are to see it because it will be further down the news. What Facebook's just introduced is the option to promote your tweet. So if you really want all of your 500 people to see it, you can promote it, and it costs about $10. But if you really want to make sure that your entire audience on Facebook that follow you see that post, then just press promote and be willing to pay the $10, whatever it is, and it will guarantee that everybody that you follow sees that post. So that's just a new function that they've got if you've got some particularly key content. So I think this is the final digital chapter before we just touch on traditional media, and that's online analytics. So what do we mean by that? It's to actually measure and actually analyse the content of our websites and our social channels. So if we've got a website of 5 pages, then we can see which pages are most popular, what is the content that people are looking at, what are they doing with that content afterwards. So it starts to just refine the process of actually messaging the communications materials that we're putting out there. So if we've got a video and we can see that everybody that hits the website is viewing the video, then let's do some more video. It gives us that opportunity to say this is working really well, so let's do more of it. This isn't working very well, so let's scrap it. Let's not focus our resource, let's not focus our budget on the stuff that's not working. Let's deal with the stuff that is, which is quite basic, but you look at some of the stats and people don't use Google Analytics, they don't use the YouTube Analytics we looked at, whereas they're providing such fantastic insights to be able to provide for your content. Just got a quick video which basically highlights this kind of notion that you should never really miss an opportunity to highlight your messaging. You should never miss an opportunity to sell, whereas a lot of websites are built in a way that they just miss and miss and miss those opportunities.
Hey, just like thanks. You sure? Yeah. Username? Big hand? Yeah. And then 1983 though. Is that any helps? Sorry. Is that any helps? No, okay, don't worry, I'll help. What's your postcode? Oh, it's GU749ZT. Welcome back, Nick, forever. Please listen carefully to the spread license agreement before continuing with your post to the local bread. If you do not, blah, blah, blah. You also agree not to use any bread-based product for any purposes prohibited by the United Kingdom law, including without limitation design, development, and manufacture of missiles, chemical, nuclear, or biological weapons. I'm afraid you've timed out. What? Sorry. Hello? Excuse me. Oh, yeah, hey. Just what then, sir? Yeah, we just... What's your username? It's Nick Forever, but number 4, not the... Yeah. Okay, I'm just going to check that you're a real person. Could you say that for a minute? Tell you my word. Okay, how about this one? You know what, forget it. This one. Head cotton ice. You're in. Great, I'm in. £8.85. It's supposed to be my earpants. That's express delivery. What's that? Oh, well, it's express delivery. It's fast. So there's look at this, £4.99. Why? Bread insurance. You didn't untick the don't decline bread insurance option. No, I think I'll risk it. It is quite close to the sell-by date. Don't care. 98 pence it is. If you want to pop back in 5 business days, it'll be ready for your collection. Well, I need it now, obviously. Oh, okay. You want the take-home today price, then that's £3.27. You know what, I'm going to go. Come back soon.
So just an observation in terms of how a lot of websites are set up with an extremely tricky customer interface. The basic ethos of online measurement is what gets measured gets managed. Obviously you want to manage that, so let's look at some of the tools that are going to empower you to be able to do so. A staggering 46% of all organisations don't have any kind of measurement for their online tools. So whether it be social, whether it be websites, whether it be video content, whatever it is, they don't have any kind of insight into terms of how that's being picked up, how it's being received. The reasons for that, 18% couldn't see the value, 50% said they lacked the necessary knowledge. So given that this is such a simple thing to be able to do, then it gives us the power to be able to actually start to monitor and measure. Just a little bit of back context with regards to what analytics is. So first and foremost, it's the reach. This is the most basic level of measuring the performance of your content and your tools. So in terms of how many people you're following, how many people are visiting your website, how many fans have you got, how many subscribers, things like that. So it's quite a basic measurement to be able to say that I've got 20,000 visitors to my website and I've got 5,000 people viewing my video on YouTube. Just gives you an idea as to the scale of people that that you've got as a captive audience. The second level beyond that, so that's the basic, the next level is involvement. So out of all of those people, how many pages have they visited in the website? Have they just gone straight from the homepage to just leave your website instantly, or have they actually got involved with lots of the pages and a lot of the content? And that's what's called the bounce rate. So you want to minimise your bounce rate because it means people have logged onto your homepage and gone off straight away into another website. You've lost them. Whereas you want them to go through the pages of your website and through hopefully quite a specific journey. So that shows you how involved they've been. From a sort of comments perspective, you could put a metric in place in terms of for every 1,000 views of the video, how many people have commented on it. So that gives you an idea as to the level of involvement of the people that you've reached. After involvement, and this is the gold standard, this is what everybody should be aiming for when they're analysing and evaluating their content, and that's advocacy. So therefore, out of all of the people you've reached and got involved with the content, how many actual advocates, how many positive feedbacks have you got? Who's actually sharing your content and retweeting it, which is quite a basic thing to do, but it shows that people have thought this is good content and I'm going to share it with my followers as well. So this is really the kind of key area